What's up, Jackrabbit Nation? It's the Splitting Hairs podcast presented by Jackrabbit Illustrated. Kyle and Dallas here tonight. Hopefully Matt can join us here before too long. But Dallas, how are you doing? It's improvement week. Not a whole lot on the table for the Jacks as far as discussion about an opponent and who we played previously. But how you feeling?
Feeling good. Solid weekend of football. I still look at my wounds after that Vikings game getting done just now, but you can't be all that surprised.
I know, man. It's like you outplay the opponent and then you leave it in the hands of a kicker who we all know that if you're a Vikings fan, it doesn't bode too well. Since 98, it hasn't bode too well. So
no, par for the course. But otherwise, I get some great college football yesterday. Missed watching the Jacks, but I wanted to plug. We got a couple of special edition pods. If as everybody's getting ready for the game week here. If you want to go back and listen, you got what? We've got 2 solid interviews that you had, Kyle. We got Coach Stig from about a week ago. So I go back and check that out. About everything that comes out of Stig's mouth should go on a poster or a T-shirt or something. Basically, everything is quotable.
A lot of wisdom.
A lot of wisdom. More than I think he knows what to do with.
Exactly.
And then we got Mark Gronowski. Yeah, that came out just today. So listen to that. And then also, if you're looking just for some basic college football talk, we had a group pod here a few days ago just talking the FBS realignment and the impact on FCS and what that could do to some familiar teams. So a lot of good content. Make sure everybody gets back and checks that out.
Yeah, definitely. We would love for you guys to check it out. Give us a rating, however you catch your pods, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Apple Music, whatever they're calling it these days. Wherever you listen to it, feel free to give us a rating. We can always improve. We definitely take your feedback to heart, and we love hearing from fans. Just weigh in all together. So appreciate that. It was fun catching up with both Stig, doing the pod with you guys. I thought we had a great back and forth. Just a really hot button topic, right? The realignment. Everybody's always curious to see what happens and how the complexion kind of shakes up, and the implications for FCS are really cool to talk about nowadays. There's some rumblings in the Twitterverse that it's already a foregone conclusion that James Madison and North Dakota State are going to play for a title because.
Well, if you saw it on Twitter, you know it's true.
Yeah, it's from some people who have their ties pretty close to the Bison, right? But it's just fascinating to see that it's already a foregone conclusion. So love to hear that, especially with some of the stout Missouri Valley competition that's going to be on the table this year, not just from the Jacks perspective, but you still got UNI out there and the Illinois States of the world. So you never know what could play out, and especially with the way SIU is playing. SIU is looking pretty good, man. Taking a Power 5 Kansas State to the wire, and then doing what they did against Dayton, who's had Dayton is what they are, but they had a nice little tight end in the league currently with the Saints. So there's always good talent out there, so you never want to sleep on anyone. And realignment is always a fascinating conversation, as was the conversation with Mark. It was great to check out what Mark is up to these days as far as his rehab and what he's going through and just kind of his thought process. Obviously, he was a big-time contributor for the Jacks in the spring. So that was cool to kind of peel back some layers, get an idea of his mindset and who he is as a person, not just a player. So that was fun. And, before we get too deep into this, I do want to highlight a couple of things. Drake's Place out in Bodle, South Dakota has got a new sandwich, right? A new sandwich. It's a Club 71 sandwich here, along with a 605 hog burger that's going to be coming out. Definitely go check that out. He's got some cool themes. Jackrabbit themed items coming onto the menu mid-September here. So that's going to be exciting. Let me read off.
You're going to read it off?
Yeah, I got to read off here.
Illegal. If you could ban a sandwich, this one should be banned.
I know, right? He's got some potentially bison themed stuff coming out too. And I love bison anyway, but if I can eat the meat of my opponents, wouldn't that be dope? Let's see here. Bear with me. Don't like the dead audio.
That's right. You know what? I got it up here. Can I read this off?
Yeah, read it up.
All right. So we got the Club 71 sandwich, which you'd think club sandwich makes sense. No. Get this. Grilled ham and cheese and a grilled turkey and Swiss. Those are the buns for a BLT. So you've got a sandwich and a sandwich making a sandwich.
Love that.
Yeah, I need one right now.
You can never have too much sandwich. Love that. But also, the 605 Hog Burger is going to be coming out too, from what I've heard. So you'll have to check that out too. It's great to have the themes to coincide with the guys who are doing all the hard work out there, and just what Mr. Drake is doing out there to honor the Jacks is truly awesome. So we want to give a nod to him as our title sponsor. Make sure you check them out. Give them some love. Whenever you stop by in Bodle, make sure you say hello to him and give him some love. So moving on, want to touch a little bit on kind of a hot button topic, aside from realignment, that comes out ever so often when a challenge is lined up, right? So we did the Big Sky MVFC challenge. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Big Sky Conference is a power similar to the Missouri Valley Football Conference at the FCS level. And the two conference heads have decided to basically get together and have a scheduling matchup where it pits some of our conference members against their conference members, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Well, this year we had 6 games starting September 4th. North Dakota squared off against Idaho State. Missouri Valley took the W in that one. Northern Arizona at South Dakota. South Dakota took the W in that one. Western Illinois at Montana. That was last week. Montana got the better of the Leathernecks there, as many people may this year. September 11th, UNI at Sac State. Now, that was kind of a marquee matchup that people had their eye on, right? Because Sac State actually was, I think they want to share the conference not too long ago, maybe 2019, 2018, can't remember. I believe it was 2019. That they were kind of, they announced themselves on the scene. Sac State did, with a new staff. UNI took that one pretty handedly as well. So then fast forward to this past weekend. Eastern Washington, I think the actual total on the point spread was 62 points. Eastern Washington had 62 alone in that contest. Western scored, I believe, a 40 spot, 42, something like that of their own, but took another L.
No, 56. It was 62-56.
62-56. Okay. Pardon me. Didn't mean to short Western.
I could be looking at a basketball score here. I guess I could be wrong.
It could be. It sounds like a basketball score anyway to me. I mean, dang, like I don't see, you don't see a lot of 60 spots in games, but Eric Barriere, the quarterback of Eastern Washington, perennial Walter Payton Award finalist member, and just everything through the air type quarterback, also can get it done a little bit with his legs, had a day, right? Like, I think he had over 250 plus yards in the first half or something like that, which was just insane.
524, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah. So, an average day at the office,
if you're playing badly, yes.
it's don't want to take anything away from those guys, but it is Western Illinois who has struggled and has finished toward the bottom of the conference as far as all of the Missouri Valley contendership is concerned. They tend to finish toward the bottom. They're 0-3 currently. North Dakota State checking in at 3-0. South Dakota State obviously 2-0. Illinois State's also there, right there with Indiana State, who's our foe coming up this week, which, we'll dive into more of them later. North Dakota is also 2-1. Northern Iowa is 2-1. So right now we got a big log jam at 2-1. Northern Iowa, South Dakota, Southern Illinois as well. Southern Illinois' only loss was to Kansas State, ranked Power 5 foe. South Dakota obviously dropping theirs to Kansas by 3, kind of on a boneheaded targeting call late in the game that kind of, put them in a disadvantageous position. And then you got Missouri State, who dropped their lone loss to Central Arkansas. So they're 1-1. Youngstown State and then Western Illinois rounding out the whole conference at 0-3.
I'll be interested to hear Ben and Brendan break down USD a little bit, because they're obviously, they're always kind of outward looking. They break down other games. Just looking at the Coyotes from afar, I don't know what to expect out of them this year.
I think they got a lot of talent. It'll be what Matt harps on a lot is their offensive line. And,
right.
and obviously it being a rivalry and an in-state rivalry, and at their place, it's going to be intense. The ante is going to be upped, and obviously they won the last one. So I would imagine the boys in blue are going to be pretty hyped to get that bad taste out of their mouths as well. Now, if you look at just diving back into the Big Sky Missouri Valley Football Conference Challenge here, We went 4-2 as a conference. The Valley did, with our 2 losses being Western Illinois. So, I mean, if you look at it, you really can. It's every contest is unique, but essentially the same team lost twice. So, therefore, it's kind of tough to kind of put too much weight in the 2 losses. But I will say this: it's nice to just kind of get a leg up on what is a really good conference in the Big Sky. As far as their FBS wins overall, they had the most by conference with 4, which I find kind of ironic, just if you're looking at weighted matchups and strength of schedule. Northern Arizona just beat U of A, but didn't beat South Dakota. U of A meaning Arizona, Power 5 Arizona, right? So, but didn't beat South Dakota. South Dakota took them to the woodshed. So I think that's kind of a telling point there, right? And then I think the big heavy hitters in the Big Sky are going to be Montana State. Those are the big heavy hitters. Obviously, UC Davis does some nice stuff out there. I'm just talking about the most complete teams. Don't want to take anything away from UC Davis. I just think that Montana and Montana State have been those fixtures in that conference for so long. And then with the resurgence of Bobby Hauck coming back for a head coaching stint at Montana, that's going to be huge. Montana State obviously is playing with some fire with a new head coach as well. So that's pretty exciting to kind of see us get a dub there, because whenever you're going to compete, especially against other conferences at that level, you want to compete with some tenacity. I do find it interesting. South Dakota took Cal Poly out back and spanked him pretty good as well. Carson Camp kind of had a resurgence at quarterback, driving the ball down the field a little bit better. Listening to an interview with him, he said he trusted his teammates more. So again, that will be a fascinating matchup down the road with the Jacks. Cal Poly, though, has Bo Baldwin as their head coach, former Eastern Washington head coach. He is revamping that offense, which was from a triple option type look to now more of a conventional spread, like conventional modern day spread type offense. So you're going to see some changes, some growing pains there, just like you're seeing at programs like Georgia Tech at the FBS level, who are trying to migrate away from that triple option.
Yeah, that's something where you can see, the start of the season, somebody can really struggle, but if you're installing something schematically, by the time you get to the end, you can have an entirely different ball club. I mean, if they're able to make a bit of a run in the conference and sneak into an at-large bid or something, who knows? That could still be a pretty decent team.
Yeah, you're saying Cal Poly?
Yeah, I'm just saying that anybody, if you have that kind of disruption, you totally change around everything schematically, you change the offense, and I know nothing about what their roster looks like. I mean, they might only end with 1 win this year. I have no idea. I'm just saying that it's been a decent team. What we're seeing now probably isn't something you'll see later on. And then the other comment I was going to make was just, you mentioned kind of just, I don't know, taking the temperature against, another premier conference. And it does make you kind of start to think about playoffs a little bit. I know it's way too soon for anybody. We're allowed to think about it. It's improvement week. We got nothing else to talk about. So it's, you start to imagine what some of these playoffs or what some of these matchups could look like in late November, early December.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's going to change completely, right? Because they're going to know their rosters better. It's kind of like the comment Kurt Lickis just put up here. He watched the first half of Eastern Washington and the Leathernecks, and he thinks he knows less now than before the game. And that's, I mean, that couldn't be more spot on, because sometimes you had an impression of what a team would be. You see what they actually are. And then by week 6, it's completely different, right? I mean, each week is so brand new. You can kind of get a beat on the guys, and the dogs are going to emerge as, the cream of the crop, if you will, like the Eric Barriers of the world. But as far as, the complexion, it's so early to tell who's going to make it. But I think you can have an idea. The Valley will get a handful of teams in the playoffs. I mean, at least 3, I would imagine. 1 auto bid, because there's 7 AQ conferences, 1 auto bid. And then, of course, a couple, if not 3, at-large bids, I would imagine, just with the strength of schedule. And then you got to think, if it becomes a log jam in the Big Sky and there's not a clear undefeated champ there, you got to think there's going to be multiple bids there as well, right? And I do want to give kudos, right? Because Weber State was not one of the teams that was on the Big Sky MVFC Challenge, nor were the Dakota dominant schools. But Weber State just played James Madison. That's a big non-conference matchup, obviously. James Madison took the W there, traveled really well. And then obviously, as mentioned earlier in the Twitterverse, apparently James Madison and NDSU are too good for the FCS, and it's a foregone conclusion they're going to be in the Natty. They're over it already. They're over it already. But I do want to give kudos to both administrations for scheduling a very strong out-of-conference matchup there. And then for James Madison, literally traveling coast to coast for that matchup, roughly coast to coast. Obviously, Ogden is not on the coast, but it's pretty darn close relative to where James Madison is out there in Virginia. So that was pretty exciting. I'd like to see more tough matchups like that. I think you'd get more attendance. But then again, what the hell do I know? Last week we played D2 Lindenwood and we had over 15,000 in the stands. So I mean, it was a great turnout. So maybe opponent is kind of relative. But I'm just excited for ball to be back, right? I'm excited for ball to be back. We got the Big Sky MVFC Challenge out of the way, 4-2. Went to the good guys again, the whole Valley Conference. Moving forward, the Jacks have a familiar foe, but a team they haven't played for a while, man. Indiana State. Last time they played Indiana State, they also went to Terre Haute out in Indiana, so we're going to be on the road. We went there in 2019 with Jabori Gibbs under center. Pierre obviously had a good game. Jabori went through the air. I know that we did a good job on defense and got after the quarterback really well. This can be a completely different Sycamore team from the standpoint of they had a whole spring where they didn't even play ball. And we're excited because we got a little treat for you here. We're going to be able to get their play-by-play guy on, and I believe he's about to join us, right, Dallas?
Yeah, he's Luke's about ready to jump in here. So excited in a minute here to welcome Luke Martin. He's the play-by-play voice for the Sycamores. Again, a super short notice, able to jump on and chat here. And actually, let me we'll go ahead and get him dialed up here right now. There we go. Luke, can you hear us, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Just fine. Welcome. One, thank you again for just short notice jumping on. Excited to hear about your squad, but I was going to ask, has your voice come back after last night? I heard your call on that, and God, that sounded exciting.
Yeah, when you get down to the very last second, it'd be nice if those games were a little bit decided before the final 2 seconds of the game, right? But it was a lot of fun, and to be able to win a game like that on the road, really two evenly matched teams. I mean, there's no secret. I mean, the competition level for Indiana State is going to go up a notch this weekend when the Jackrabbits come into Terre Haute. But if you would have been leaving Richmond, Kentucky, losing in the fashion it would have, which you don't trail all night long till 49 seconds are left in the game, but you find a way to come back, you score, and the guys who did it was amazing. Curtis Wilderman, who didn't win the starting job, it was a lackluster kind of first half offensively. He starts the second half. And then Faison Mcclurge, who got the game-winning touchdown, was hurt in fall camp, and he was actually on the scout team offense the first week of the season and ends up catching 2 touchdowns last night in a crazy win. So, well, hey, it could have been much worse. The voice is back. The voice feels good today. That's what happens when you get back around 4 a.m. and you can sleep it off a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so that's multiple games now that have come down to the wire a little bit for the Sycamores, but they've been able to grit it out both times. What do you think is some of the cause of that?
Yeah, this has been a team going back to Coach Mallory's first year where South Dakota State didn't get a chance to play Indiana State in 2017. That was an 0-11 season for Indiana State under Coach Mallory in his first year, but you look at the first 3 weeks of the season, that Eastern Illinois game, they lost on a last-second touchdown in the closing seconds. Played Tennessee in a Power 5 game, didn't go very well. And then the third week of the season, they played Liberty their last year, kind of in that FCS before they jumped to the FBS, and they lost on a blocked field goal. They lined up. They got down within the 10-yard line, lined up to kick a field goal that would have won it, and they end up getting it blocked, and they were 0-3, and those negative energies of not being able to kind of complete it in the first year to now these close games, Indiana State's starting to find a way to win those. And a lot of that is because you have experienced guys, whether it's Anoke Mawala on the defensive side, even though Dante Hendrix hasn't been playing recently due to an injury, wide receiver for Indiana State team captain, Michael Thomas, a team captain. They have guys who have been through the struggle. They have guys who have been through where they've been on the other side. They've been on the Eastern Kentucky side where they've had their heart ripped out at the end of the game. But they've been right there. The Northwestern game just got down very quickly, 14-0, but they fought. It was a game the rest of the way that was pretty darn even. But when you dig yourself a 14-point hole early, just unable to come back. So, yeah, those games, there's been some close ones. There's been some entertaining ones. And luckily on Indiana State's side of the ledger, they've been able to come out at least this year on the positive side for that.
I'm curious, before we get into the roster here, you talked about dropping some games and then now that were tight, and then things are starting to turn around now. And obviously Mallory and his, this season now has got a little bit more experience. What can you speak to kind of the culture that he's instilling and what, kind of what he's pushing around the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, the culture has been a huge thing that had to be changed when he got the job. That was kind of an area where Indiana State football needed to grow. It's been a complete culture change since his first year in 2017, and he started to get guys that are just buying into the program and what they want to do and where they want to go. And Indiana State's a basketball school. There's no secret about that. When you have the history of a Larry Bird that came here and played, of course, that's what everybody, when they hear Indiana State, that's who they think of, right? But Coach Mallory is the son of Bill Mallory, who's the all-time winningest coach in Indiana. Not probably about it. IU made the mistake of firing him and thinking they could do better, and they ultimately did not. But the Mallory name resonates in the state of Indiana. It always will resonate in the state of Indiana. And when Coach Mallory, Kurt Mallory, that is, goes and talks to all the high school coaches in the state, all those high school coaches were kids wanting to play for Bill Mallory's program at Indiana. Indiana State is an FCS program. They're not, the necessarily the FBS programs, right, where you got Purdue, IU, Notre Dame, of course, where those kids, if they get an opportunity to go to play at that level, odds are they're not going to choose an FCS program over you. But there's been a lot of Indiana kids. I'm pretty sure Coach Mallory's first year, there were 23 kids from the state of Indiana on the roster. Now there's nearly 50. So he's doubled that, which means there's more input. There's more fan interest because a lot of these guys that suit up and play are local kids, and they bring their families and their friends from all the areas and across the state of Indiana. And Indiana's gotten better, much, much better in high school football, really, since Peyton Manning and the Colts kind of had that boom in the 2000s. And it's still a basketball state, and Hoosier hysteria is still a thing in high school basketball in this state, but high school football has improved. And I think that's helped the program out a lot. But to kind of come full circle, back to the program, yeah, there's been a culture change here at Indiana State. This is a program that believes that they can make the postseason, that should be the goal. There's times where you look through the record book for Indiana State, you go 5-7, that's a good year. That's not the expectation now. They want to make sure that they can be in the conversation, that they can be in the hunt, and that they can make the postseason and be a team like many in this league, right? The Valley's a darn good league. There are going to be many teams that are not going to be vying for a playoff spot. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be jockeying for that position, and Indiana State hopes they can be one of those.
And so when you look at that culture shift and that change, right, like there have been glimpses from previous teams that have assembled good rosters. There was a quarterback transfer, I want to say from Washington in like 2011 or so,
Ronnie
or 12.
Fouch. Yeah, he's actually now on staff at Missouri State with Coach Petrino.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, some really talented players who obviously are football guys who then carry on their career into the coaching realm. But then you have, they took out the Bison, I think, at home that year and handed them one of their losses. And that's no easy feat for any team. For guys that played the Bison in our careers, we were fortunate to get 3 straight when I played. And it was a dogfight every time. So, I mean, they do have rapport of kind of getting to that top of the mountain, but never being able to get over that hump, right? So from a practical, realistic perspective, is like a 7-win season kind of the aim to try to be, obviously everybody goes into the season trying to win the conference, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to ever sell yourself short, but you have to practically frame the rebuild. Is that kind of something that's on the forefront of Kirk's mind?
I think, there's never really been a big talk of win total, of necessarily a number to get, we have to get to 6 or 7 or 8 wins. I mean, when you look at it and you look how tough the league's going to be, if you get to that number, That's very impressive. I think so, at least in this league. Indiana State does not see North Dakota this year. They do not see UNI either. Those are probably two teams that will be towards the upper ledger of the league. So maybe they get a little bit of a break there in terms of the schedule, but they do get the Bison back. Of course, they obviously play the Jackrabbits this weekend. So talk about a way to start off your conference play. But I've been around Coach Mallory. We've been able to get to know each other very well. He's really become a really good friend of mine. And to answer, I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I just think he would answer it the same way. Our goal is, yes, to go in and make the postseason, whatever that is. If that means you need 7 wins, then that's the goal. If that means you need 8 wins, then that's where you need to get to.
Right.
But man, that's going to be so hard. Not just because of the difficulty of the league, but I still think, yes, Indiana State did what they needed to do for them to be in position to even have this conversation. They had to be 2-1 and really beat 2 teams that they should beat in Eastern Kentucky and Eastern Illinois. They did that. But again, now is, okay, what are you going to do when the schedule gets turned up a notch? What are you going to do when you go up against a team that I personally think is the best team in the country and has looked the most impressive through 2 games, being South Dakota State?
Yeah, well put. And I didn't try to ask that question to try to kind of box you in there. I just, as you're familiar with the Valley as Dallas and I are, it does get to a point where you're like, all right, I think that 7 wins is the threshold to kind of take that next step. And
that is not a bad look for a season in the Missouri Valley.
No, not at all. And I agree with your point. I think for Indiana State so back in 2018, Indiana State was 2-1. That's the last time they were 2-1, but they would ultimately lose the next 3 games. Northern Iowa shut them out, I think 33-0 to start off conference play. Went on the road to South Dakota State, nearly won that game. That game went in the overtime. It was a very
high scoring affair, right?
High scoring affair. Kind of showed that was kind of the first game where you kind of saw Indiana State's offense really get it in gear. And that was a team that was capable to be able to score with the Jackson. The following week, they lost on a last-second touchdown to Missouri State. And all of a sudden, they were 2-1 and now 2-4. And they win the last 5 games, nearly made the playoffs, and got to, at that point, 7-4 on the year. So I think 7 wins. My point is, Indiana State's got to walk the walk. And in 2019, they were very confident that it was going to be a team that would ultimately prove that they were going to be in the upper echelon of the league. They did not do it. The last 5 games of the year, they were all 1-possession games in the fourth quarter, and they only win the last 2. So, yes, I would agree with you. To answer your question, I think from a fan perspective, from people on the outside, excluding the players, because it's kind of hard to include them, if Indiana State found a way to get to 7 wins this year, which means that means you win, 5 games in the Valley, from this point on, that is a tremendous year for this group. I think especially when you factor in you didn't play a year ago, and there's still a lot of stuff for them, I think, to clean up to get to that point.
Yeah, certainly. And then to that point, in 2018, obviously it's a little bit different team here in 2021. 3 years later, you may have some carryover with just a few guys there, but early in the year, we were joking about it earlier before we brought you on. The complexion of teams just changes so much throughout the course of the year. Who are some of the early guys who've emerged on the scene so far who have kind of got you just second glance in the roster here? At like, wow, I didn't fully anticipate this guy contributing to the degree that he has, or, just something to that effect.
Yeah, well, I think the obvious one is Faison Mcclurge, what he did over the weekend. 2 touchdowns against Eastern Kentucky after, like I said, he was on the scout team first week, heading to Eastern Illinois. He didn't even make my spot board, which that says a lot because, in today's day and age, when you still, that 4-game redshirt rule that you have, I try to put down as many guys as possibly could get into the game. And Faison really wasn't even in consideration that first week against Eastern Illinois. He's on the spotting board now, boys. So he's actually going to be towards the spot. He's going to be towards the top. That's not going to be a problem for Faison. I think he definitely has emerged from an offensive standpoint. Defensively, Jeffrey Brown, keep an eye on him. Indiana State's had an all-conference linebacker every year since 2016. Jonas Griffith has graduated. Clayton Glasgow graduated. Cottrell Moss, who does our TV games here in Terre Haute, he graduated a couple years back too. His last year was that 2018 team. But Indiana State historically has always had really good linebackers. And Jeffrey Brown is a 2-year freshman, so that's the second year. He was on the roster last year, of course, didn't have a season. He earned his first start over the weekend. You will see him everywhere. And I think Jeffrey is starting to emerge as a guy who's going to kind of carry that tradition on. Heath Stephen is a transfer in at linebacker as well. Again, he's been on the roster technically for 2 years, but his first season being able to play. He came from the same junior college as Clayton Glasgow did, who ended up being a all-conference level type linebacker with Jonas Griffith back in 2019. Those two guys defensively have emerged. I mean, Michael Thomas has always been around. Mike had the 2 interceptions against Eastern Illinois. But he got the pick 6 there against Eastern Illinois back back in the week 0. Mike's been a guy that's improving. So I'm really excited just to see this roster continue to evolve. There's guys we knew that would be key pieces like Mike Thomas, like Anoke Mawala. Offensively, even though Dante Hendrix has missed the last couple of weeks, Michael Hoppert missed over the weekend. Those guys we knew were going to be key guys on the Indiana State roster. But those other names that I told you, keep an eye on those guys. I think those guys are going to continue to probably lay the groundwork for what will be really good careers for them here in Terre Haute.
Nice. I appreciate you weighing in on that, Luke. And I want to bring in our founder of Jackrabbit Illustrated here, Matt Tollefson. Matt just joined because he wants to ask you about Robert Tonyan. Surely.
Oh,
yeah, Robert. I'm a huge Packer fan, so Big really? Bob Tonyan and Dominic Daphne, right?
Yeah.
So I love those guys. The versatility. Anyone like that in that H-back tight end role currently?
Yeah, well, really right now, the funny thing is, Rob, when he was here, was just a wide receiver. Yeah, right. He was not a tight end in college. Dom Daphne, of course, ultimately at the start of the year was just strictly a wideout for us. And then towards the end of the year, we put him in that Wildcat package. Mm-hmm. They've been trying it because Michael Hoppert's been that guy. Michael Hoppert's been at wide receiver. He had 4 receptions, I believe, against Northwestern. He ran it against Eastern Illinois, including a 44-yard touchdown run. Mike is a guy you'll see kind of everywhere. He'll line up at quarterback in the Wildcat role. He was a high school quarterback. He has the potential to throw it, but he'll line up at receiver. He'll run it as well. He's probably the closest one to that, but he did not play against Eastern Kentucky. The coaches have said he's kind of a week-by-week basis in terms of determining what his status will be for this weekend. But I'm right now, Zach Larkin, who was a quarterback in 2017, and in the quarterback battle, he didn't get the job. He's like, I still want to play, though, and he transitioned to tight end. He's been the main tight end for Indiana State since 2017. You will see him in that Wildcat role and have the ability to run. It didn't have a ton of success over the weekend against Eastern Kentucky. They normally use it in short yardage situations. That's kind of if they need to pound it and get a yard. Odds are instead of seeing a quarterback sneak or hand it off to any of the tailbacks like a Peterson Curligran, you may see Zach Larkin go in at the Wildcat spot and try to bulldoze his way just to get a yard or two in a short yardage situation. So Zach Larkin's kind of that guy right now. Sure. Michael Hoppert's kind of misdoing everything from an offensive perspective. But, man, to try to compare anybody to those two guys that you mentioned, Rob, a tremendous career as a wideout here, which I just missed him. My first year was at Indiana State in the fall of 2017. So he graduated in the 2016 season. Man, seeing Dom do what he did towards the end of that year last year was amazing. And it's so great to see because Dom's a guy who went to Iowa, was so talented, really probably could have played. I mean, he's a Big Ten talent, but it just shows you how deep those rosters are when a guy like that can't even get on the field.
It's kind of funny because when he caught that touchdown, I believe in the playoff game, everyone's like, who's Dominic Daphne? And I'm like, I wrote about him 2 years ago. He was in my blog. So it's kind of funny. I'm wondering, I'm kind of curious. Rontrez Morgan, maybe you guys already covered it. We all watched the first game of the season against Eastern Illinois. Him and Dante Hendrix just appeared like a heck of a duo that's going to be tough. And since then, I just looked at the stats. He has 19 receptions. I remember him from a few years ago really being a speed guy is how I thought of him. How is his game growing? Because obviously it has if he has 19 receptions on the year.
Yeah, and you look at those reception yardages, though, Trez, I think he had the 52-yard reception yesterday, and that was by far the longest one of the season. He was averaging only about 4 yards per reception. And a lot of those were like quick passes to the perimeter to try to make up for the lack of running game for Indiana State so far this year. I mean, typically Indiana State wants to run the ball, and they want to run it well through the first 2 weeks of the season. Granted, they only had 31 yards rushing against Northwestern, so that really kind of, puts a damper on what your rushing totals were. But they were only averaging about 94 yards rushing as a team through the first 2 weeks of the season. So that's not where they want it to be. Trez has really developed in terms of trying to be the main guy, to be the main target, because Dante Hendrix has been down lately for Indiana State. You look at his numbers, he has 3 career touchdowns. 2 of them were against the Jackrabbits back in that game in 2018. He broke, I'm trying to remember, I think he broke his collarbone in that game. It was on the touchdown grab that he had. I believe it was in the third quarter, late in that game. I know we were going right to left, as I remember, up in the press box. Didn't know it at the time. He played through it, but he broke his collarbone in that game, and he missed the rest of the season until he came back late against Western Illinois. He's been hampered by injuries. That's been kind of the biggest thing with Trez. He's just been trying to get out there and stay healthy. When he's out there and he's healthy, he's fast, he's quick, he's got the speed to be able to kind of have success in those perimeter shots. But Indiana State also hasn't taken a lot of shots deep down the field. It looks like they're starting to do that a little bit more. So we'll see if Trez's numbers can go up, but it's just kind of ironic. He's a guy, when you say his name, you kind of look at his numbers and you feel like they should be a little bit more, especially in his touchdowns. I feel like I've said touchdown Rontrez Morgan more than 3 times, but that's only 3 times I've been able to say it.
Well, listen, we definitely feel your pain, and we'll see your collarbone and we'll raise you one, because we had a little situation of our own not this past weekend, but the weekend previously, where Isaiah Davis, we wish him the best, had surgery, and hopefully he'll be back on the horse again here shortly to be able to contribute. But his health comes first. We wish all the players for Indiana State health after their last game, because you never know. There's always bumps and bruises and guys fighting through various things. We could talk all day about the Indiana State roster. You are well versed in it, but Matt and I just want to probably bring up this. What would be some keys to success for the Sycamores? Obviously facing a stout opponent in the Jacks, but what would be some keys to success offensively and defensively?
Well, I don't think it's going to be any secret, guys. 2019 and 18, you look at the differences those 2 years. Indiana State turned the football over in total in 2018 8 times, and they won the last 5 games of the year, almost made the playoffs. In 2019, they turned the football over 26 times. That was why Indiana State, a lot of those games I told you about, those last 5 games last year, Northern Iowa, they had the ball inside the 10-yard line 3 times, no touchdowns, unable to finish. I think holding on to the football, number one, making sure you don't turn it over. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me. I'm sure you guys have probably talked about it at some point in time. The game in 2019, it was really turnovers for Indiana State that started to steamroll for South Dakota State early. I mean, they had that 28-point, I think, second quarter. It looked like it was pure domination, but a lot of it was just mistakes.
Sack fumble.
Yeah.
Sack fumble by Winkleman, I believe. And
just a lot of mistakes from an Indiana State. I mean, give credit to South Dakota State, of course, too, but a lot of that I felt was self-inflicting.
Right.
So if Indiana State can hold on to the football, don't turn it over, and when they get the opportunities to score, they have to get touchdowns. When they get into the red zone, they got to, 1, get to the red zone, and 2, finish those drives. Jerry Nunez, who is the all-time points leader for Indiana State in terms of field goal kicking, he's gone. And I think that's an aspect of the game, too, for Indiana State that's inconsistent right now. Alan Selzer, who's a transfer in from Michigan, hit his first kick from 48 yards, but he's been inconsistent since then. He can hit a 48-yarder, but he can also miss one, between 30, 40 yards. So finding that consistency from a special team standpoint for Indiana State will be key. And defensively, you have to eliminate the explosion plays. Pierre Strong, we all know about him, how good he is. You just can't make him have those big home run hits where it seems like he's always had in his career at South Dakota State. eliminating those big plays defensively for the Sycamores. The defense is good enough, guys. I really think that is the strength of this Indiana State team. It's just, can they play complementary football? Can the offense pick up the scoring? Right now, they haven't really been able to score at will. Heading into the Eastern Kentucky game, they only had 3 offensive touchdowns. And after the first quarter, because Indiana State scored on a muff punt by Eastern Kentucky, it was three offensive touchdowns and 2 non-offensive touchdowns on the year. That kind of shows you the struggle it's been for Indiana State offensively. They've kind of been able to move the ball at times, just haven't been able to finish those drives. So I don't want to just simplify it and say, because I feel like that's such a cliche answer of hold on to the ball, be sure to finish drives. But I think specifically for Indiana State, if they don't turn it over, I think sometimes we like to make this game complex and make it seem like you got to get really specific with your keys to the game. But for Indiana State, I think it's going to simply come down to that, because they're going to have to play their A-plus game to be in the game on Saturday. You can't have a lot of penalties. You can't turn the football over like crazy to have a chance to even win. For Indiana State to be in contention to win the game on Saturday, they have to limit turnovers offensively. That's going to be the biggest thing for the Sycamores come Saturday against the Jackrabbits.
Sometimes cliches are cliches because they're true.
Correct.
Indeed.
And that's one of them.
Just being a broadcaster, we try to not talk in cliches all the time because that's a big, bugaboo in terms of what we do. But you're right. There's a reason they're cliches too.
Certainly.
I want to say we kept you longer than I promised. I hope you're good to hang out for another minute or two here. Awesome. We've talked about skill guys a lot. And one of the hallmarks we think of the South Dakota State team is the line, both sides of the ball. Got some size, got some serious skill. And, I think that's a huge reason why, some of our skill guys have had the success that they've had. Can you cover the lines for Indiana State? What you guys bringing to the table?
Defensively, it's been a change in terms of the scheme. Indiana State was a 4-man front kind of consistently in 2019. They've now kind of primarily gone to a 3-man front. You'll see Anoke Mawala, Gavin Deneen, who was a Pioneer Football League, all Pioneer Football League guy at Drake. He was their team captain. He's kind of been the main nose guard for Indiana State. And then Caleb Brewer kind of makes up that defensive line on the opposite end in terms for Indiana State. But that's a group where I feel why the Jackrabbits are now consistently the best team or one of the best teams in the country is because you can rotate guys and keep them fresh. I think Indiana State is closer to that. They probably rotate maybe 7-8 guys consistently. I don't think they're quite past 8 where it seems like South Dakota State is, but you'll see a mixture of probably 8 guys go in consistently, changing in and out, and that's made a difference because Indiana State can now sub, where in the past they've really not been able to do that, and as the game goes down, they really get worn down. Offensively up front, I still think that is a question mark for Indiana State. I don't think that was kind of heading into 2019. That was supposed to be a strength, and it was not. They had 5 redshirt seniors start that year, and I felt they were pretty underwhelming, to be honest, and wasn't to the point where they should be. This year, Isaiah Edwards is kind of that big guy there in the left guard spot. He went down late against Eastern Kentucky, but came back, so assume he will be okay. Keegan Trost was our starting left tackle. It was his first start at left tackle against Eastern Kentucky. He went down on the first drive. He was in a boot at halftime, so that's probably not very optimistic, but haven't heard exactly what his status will be. Carter Heron, who was the starter the first couple games of the year, he came back and got that spot on the left tackle. Carter's now, I think, like 315, 320. He came in as a freshman at 255, so it kind of shows you the weight that he's been able to put on and get stronger. Jose Vasquez is as tough as you can be. Jose kind of had to be thrown into the fire in 2019. He's now gotten stronger. Joel Stevens will be starting at the right tackle spot. It's an offensive line that has grown. You'll see Indiana State also bring in guys that are linemen but will wear tight end numbers, basically just trying to be one that they could be eligible, and if a pass could be thrown to them, they could get into that spot, but also to bring in just extra blockers. So you'll see guys like Jalen Booth. He's a transfer from San Diego State. Adib Jowney just had his first action over the weekend against Eastern Kentucky after kind of being sick during fall camp, not COVID related. Just have to say that because people freak out when you say somebody was under the weather. But he was under the weather going into the Eastern Illinois game and was unable to play. So the strength up front, I feel like offensively for Indiana State can be better, but it's getting better. I got to give those guys credit. I feel like I've been harping on them a lot through fall camp, definitely early on in the season, because it takes more for them too. I feel like not the backtrack, but I think for Indiana State, why losing Dante Hendrix was big. He was the best run blocker out of the wide Receivers. And, Ron Trez is a speedster, not so much as a blocker. The perimeter blocking for Indiana State's got to get better too for them, not just putting it all up front. You got to put pressure on those receivers too to be more physical on the outside guys and open up those lanes too for Indiana State. So the strength up front is getting better. Defensive line, I feel like I haven't watched everybody up front, but I would put Indiana State's defensive front line up there with anybody in the league. As you get into the depth, that's where, of course, that's really going to be shown in teams like South Dakota State and all the other teams within our league. But Indiana State won't bat an eye. I think that defensively, this is the most depth that they have had under head coach Kurt Mallory, and I think it shows.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's the biggest change that I've noticed as far as on film is the odd front from the even four-man front. And now you have a lot of teams going to either a 4-2-5 look or, these 3-4 odd man looks where they can just kind of confuse offenses as far as their schemes or the blitz packages they want to bring in. Of course, everyone's going to run a nickel or a dime package based on circumstance, right? So for those of you listening, 5 DBs and 6 DB sets, depending on down and distance and what's going on in the game. But what I notice is like it's going to take a minute to develop that depth, going from a 4-man front to a 3-man front, just because, you historically, whether you're running, a zero or a shade on the center, that's going to be your big 2-gap eater defensive nose tackle, right? So, being able to change the body comp of those guys from a 4-man front to now having to eat up more blocks, it's just going to take some time. But the reason I bring that up is because I thought we were going to throw all over Southern Illinois last year in their 3-man look, but we decided to run the ball and we ran it all over them in the first matchup. It's going to be interesting to see the run game play out from an offensive perspective as far as South Dakota State, because the guy who got off in that game against Southern Illinois was our big back, Isaiah Davis. So it'll be interesting to see. Pierre didn't even play in that first matchup if memory serves. So it'll be really interesting to see how he's able to kind of take on that odd man front.
Yeah, well, and if you watch the Northwestern game, that's why Northwestern had so much success early running the football. I think those first 2 drives, they probably ran somewhere along the lines of 20 plays. 19 of them were rushes, and they already had over 100 yards rushing after the first 2 drives. And the challenge was the 3-man front for Indiana State. They made adjustments late in the game. They kind of went more to a 4-man front as that went along, and kind of got back their wits about them, I guess would probably be the best way to phrase it. But yeah, Northwestern went kind of bully ball on them and then kind of got away from it, which was kind of a head scratcher. But that's kind of how it went. And yeah, I think to your point, you're exactly right. I think that's what I'm anxious to see exactly what Coach Stig will do as they prepare for this game this week. There's so much respect for what that guy has done. And I know Coach Mallory thinks a lot of him and the program he has built. And that's even before it's really got rolling here over the last couple of years. So, and I know it's vice versa both ways. I know Coach Stiegelmeier was one of the main coaches that reached out to Coach Mallory when he decided not to play and was like, you're making the best decision for your program. And he was very, very supportive, I know, of Coach Mallory. I think he was very supportive of those teams that elected ultimately not to play in the spring because of their circumstances. So there's a lot of mutual respect between both of these programs, even though, of course, both these teams have one goal in mind, and that's to beat one another come Saturday here in Terre Haute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, thinking back just to what you said just right there, that's perfect, because when we did our season preview a month ago, we really didn't know what to say about Indiana State because they weren't in the spring season. But what we said was that we know Kurt Mallory is going to have them prepared and ready to play. And because we have a lot of respect with how he's kind of stabilized the program from our end, just the jump that he made in that first to second year, right? When it was when they made the big jump, like. So we're believers in Kurt Mallory over here. So
well, and to kind of piggyback off of that too is nobody transferred out. Back in January, everybody who was here is still here, and it's a team that I feel has a lot of talented guys. And you know what? That wasn't the case throughout the league. There were other teams. I'm not trying to that's not trying to throw shade at any other programs, but there were other programs that lost guys, and. That was probably going to happen for some programs, but that's the belief factor. These guys believe in their coach. They believe in one another. And not to get too cliche-ish again, but that's kind of what showed yesterday against Eastern Kentucky. Even when they got punched right at the very end, they only had 49 seconds left in the game. There was not one doubt that they were not going to win that game. That whole sideline believed they were going to win the game. That whole sideline knew they were going to find a way to drive and have a chance to win it at the end, and they did. And to your point, they were 0-11 in 2017. They got beaten by an average score of 52-10. The games were not even close. Now, that when you get into a game with Indiana State, they're going to fight you till the very end. They're not going to be maybe the most talented, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to win every week, but it's going to be a fight. And they're not going to back down and go, oh, my goodness, South Dakota State, here's probably the best team in the country coming in this weekend. They're going to look forward to that opportunity and having a chance to play South Dakota State because they know the Jackrabbits are going to be ready. They know there's going to be many haymakers that they're going to throw. They're just looking forward to throwing some of their own, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Now, this
with all the new conning rules, we don't want any more flags.
No. Yes. Man, this is going to be a game. I'm looking forward to this. Kind of in closing or before you take off here, it feels to me like the Gopher team that the Jackrabbits should have beat in 2019, where they had a lot of talent. They had a lot of seniors on that team, but they eked out their first 4 wins of the season, end up with 11 wins, and absolutely maximized. What they had that year because everybody believed in each other and they all kind of got on the same page. So having wins like that at the start of a season can bring a team together and, really can even outperform maybe what they would have otherwise. So anything, I guess you guys got for Luke here before we let him go?
I got one thing, just switching from the football domain. We have folks who are going to travel to Terre Haute and enjoy and maybe stimulate some of the economy down there. What are some of the staple restaurants or things in the kind of the vicinity that they should check out?
Well, come on down to Paradise. That's what everybody calls it here in Terre Haute. We'd love to have you, all the folks from Brookings. One of my really favorite places, if you're getting up to go to Memorial Stadium on a Saturday morning, stop by Cackleberry's. It's right off of campus. It's a mom and pop type breakfast shop. So if you're a really big breakfast food lover and you really kind of like those mom and pop type breakfast places, Cackleberry's is can't miss. It's just right off campus. They do a lot of the catering in terms of food for the guys for breakfast throughout the week and for meals like that. So Cackleberry's is definitely one of my favorite places. If you're looking for really good burgers that are not healthy for you, Fifi's right on Wabash, which is just close to Memorial Stadium. They have breakfast burgers and stuff that are just absolutely not good for you at all. Tons of calories, all that kind of stuff, but really good food. Another kind of local establishment that's really good. That's only about, probably 3 minutes from the stadium. So if you're looking for some place that's really close, that's always a fun place to go.
Well, I pull up their website, and the first thing that pops up is a burger with 2 donuts for buns.
Love it.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. I'm telling you, it is great food. And actually, one of the people that introduced me to that was Coach Mallory himself. So it was kind of it's kind of hidden a little bit. You kind of got to find it. You'll blink. If you blink, you'll probably drive by it. But those are really 2 really cool places in terms from a food standpoint here. If you're a Jackrabbit fan coming and looking to try to grab a place to eat, those 2 local places are really good and a lot of fun to go visit. And they're big supporters of Indiana State. Just good to go in and grab a good slice of food.
Awesome.
Awesome. Much appreciated. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And, when we make the trip to South Dakota State here, hopefully, in a year, be great to meet you guys. So appreciate you letting me hop on and ramble about the Sycamores for a little bit.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Luke Martin, everybody, play-by-play voice for the Sycamores. That was awesome.
Hey, and that's a great time. He was talking about his local favorites. It's a great time for us to drop our local favorite real quick. We talked about Drake's Place earlier. Just want to sprinkle in here our other title sponsor, Cottonwood Coffee. Cottonwood Coffee on Main. If you're gonna study, get some work done. If you're a small business owner, you got some work to do. Swing on down to the Main Street location, Cottonwood Coffee. If you want to grab a bite, they have the bistro location as well. Man, I love their breakfast burrito. That's my go-to. Lauren, my girlfriend, loves their veggie spread on their bagels. They always have great coffee on drip too, and espresso if you need a quick pick-me-up. So go check them out. Love to have them as a part of a sponsor for the podcast.
Kyle, that segue would make Joe Buck blush. That was fantastic. I'm so impressed.
I got to pull my weight here somehow.
That's awesome. How's it going, guys?
It's going good, man. Luke gave us so much good quality information and insight as to the program, far better than I think we could have done. But
yeah,
but
that was good, man.
Good.
And he agreed. I mean, I reached out to him at like 3:00 this afternoon and jumped on here at 7:30. So yeah,
Cool.
Good dude.
The one player, that I'm really interested in on their defensive front that he did mention is number 13, that Anoka Malola.
Yeah.
He was just a destroyer in that game against Eastern to open the season. He did get gassed towards the end of the game, it looked like. But man, he plays with a lot of fire. So I'm really interested just to see how he plays against our tackles. We'll see.
Yeah, in the quarterback matchup, or whoever gets the nod is going to be interesting too, right? Because Wilderman got some play after Thompson. So it looks like, there was maybe some struggles and things like that in the second Eastern game against Eastern Kentucky that they pulled out at the last second, literally as well. It'll just be fun. It'll be fun to get a taste of what the Sycamores are now, not having played last year, and then to just really kind of ramp up conference play. We put the non-conference stuff behind us and get ready to rock.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's pretty much what I got.
It is. We're at about an hour here.
Let's do predictions.
You want to run through picks? I don't know, Matt. You jumped in late here. Glad you did. Anything that you wanted to cover that we haven't yet?
No, I'm excited to see for the Jacks who we use in that second running back role. We've said before, and you guys said last week, we don't want Pierre carrying the ball 30 times a game. That just can't. It's not sustainable for his build. So I don't. Someone's gonna have to carry the ball, and I'm just excited to see what our offense looks like after this improvement week, and who steps forward. So we'll go forward with that. So we'll see. And then their defense. I'm just excited. I don't know. I'm excited for football again. It's been a busy week and weekend for me. So I'm excited to have some time for some football. So my prediction is Jackrabbits 35-17.
I like that. What do you got, Dallas?
Oh, making me go second. I was going to wait and just kind of pick someone between you guys.
I'm still mulling over, so I had to make you guys second.
I think this team's sneaky. I mean, if somebody's going to surprise the conference, I think it's going to be the Sycamores this year. Let's go. I mean, I think just in the end, size is going to be too much, and defensive line depth is going to be too much. So I'm going to go Jackrabbits. Let's go. Let's go 28-10.
28-10. That's giving a nice nod to them. That's good. I think that, after hearing Luke talk about it and after watching, I do think that their offense is going to struggle. Just because our defensive line seems to be just a pest. And as far as our offense versus their defense is concerned, it'll be interesting to see how we approach that 3-4 front. I'm going to say we'll put up, I think we'll put up 35 to 38 points. So I'm going to say 38. I'm going to say 38-14. Good guys.
All right. Well, there we go.
That's what happens when Matt joins late.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So
No, I wasn't blaming you. It throws the whole vibe off.
I know. I'm sorry. Church council. So with that, we'll wrap it up. This week we have a number of things coming at you. If you need to, go back and listen to Kyle's interview with Mark Gronowski. We haven't really plugged it probably enough. Go back and listen to his interview with Stig. That was a phenomenal interview. I guess yet to plug it yet. That is one of my favorite interviews we've had on the show because it was a coach talking to a former player. And Stig is usually very real and honest in his interviews. This to me was like a different level. Finding out that Desperado is one of his pump-up songs before a game. I laughed in my car listening to that. I sang Desperado in show choir once. So it was kind of funny. But go back and listen to that. We have the preview of Indiana State coming out. We have What's Cooking. We have the What to Watch. And then the B team's going to be on Tuesday night, right, Dallas? So, yeah. So lots of good stuff coming at you this week. We're excited for the games to be back.
Correct. All kind of content, ready to get fired back up, watching football.
And again, I've made another Jackrabbit Central purchase. So shout out to them for the crop top that my girlfriend got. Hopefully it'll buy me some more equity in our relationship.
I thought you were going to wear the crop top. I really thought
you don't want to see me in a crop top.
All right. With that, no more fashion talk here. Have a great week.